I'm going to bring up Wild Bill for America. He's going to close us out with a call to action, and then we'll have a short Q&A session and call it a day. Thank you guys for sticking through this.
Thank you, Bill, for that encouraging report. Sometimes we need a little bit of encouragement. You know, as patriotic Americans for the last several years, we've dealt with some disappointments, and sometimes we tend to feed on the negative, and that can lead to discouragement. And we are the last people who should be discouraged about the United States of America. We have a lot to be positive and thankful for. And over in my years of working with Act for America and other patriotic groups, I've learned that the best way to get over any discouragement you may have is for you to get out and get active and taking a stand for some of these things. Well, like Randy, I want to thank you all for coming together for this. We are dealing today with probably the most serious human rights problems in America today. And I am deeply disappointed that the Florida Human Rights Commission didn't send us a single representative. Randy personally invited them, and I publicly challenged them. And it says something about our Florida government that they are not here today. Amen. Violent terrorism is rising up all across Europe and in the USA. And unless substantial steps are taken to defeat violent jihad, it could very well touch the family members here in this audience today. If we're going to get a handle on Islamic terrorism and oppression, there is one thing that we need to get us started, and that is open and honest discussion. Honesty and the courage to face facts is mandatory in any problem-solving efforts. And frankly, I have been grieved by the suppression of free speech by certain groups that want to push certain agendas. We come here today from different backgrounds and lifestyles, and there are probably multiple reasons for you being here. Well, I can tell you the reason that I'm here. A little 8-year-old girl named Safi, who went to a teeny bopper concert in England a couple weeks ago, and that little girl never came home. She died with nails embedded in her face from a terrorist bomb. A Middle Eastern man strapped a bomb on, and he deliberately targeted those little boys and girls, blowing himself up and turning those children into chunks of bloody red meat. The intent is to inflict as much pain and agony as possible. And the message was the same message that we always get from men like that. Submit to Islam, or we will do this again and again and again until you do. And that is the problem that brings us together today.
Amen.
And it's too bad that the Florida Human Rights Commission could not make it today. If there's anything that can bring us together to say this is wrong and we will defeat it, it is this. And when the men and women of a nation find themselves targeted, threatened by such an evil, they absolutely must band together, stand together, and they must commit to doing whatever it takes to defeat such monsters, to keep their families and their communities safe. Now, some of us are angry. We want to wade into battle and get these guys before they get any more of our children. Yet others say that we should learn to live with this new reality. The mayor of London told the citizens that terrorism is just part and parcel of modern life. Apparently we are supposed to get used to it. Well, as a law enforcement officer, I have sat with the parents of dead children. There is no getting used to it. Another group attempts to blame us for the terrorist act, saying, well, if you weren't bombing their countries, they wouldn't be doing these things. Baloney. Well said. For 1,200 years, acts like this have been taking place in Egypt and Turkey and Germany and Spain, on and on and on. The ongoing conflict in the Middle East was triggered by terrorist acts. The Crusades of the Middle Age were a response to terrorist acts. Make no mistake about it, Western civilization is not the aggressor.
Amen. Say it again.
Now, in Islam, the entire world is divided up into two categories. Countries that are fully Islamic are called Dar al-Salam, the House of Peace. Countries that are not yet submitted to Islam are known as Dar al-Harb, the House of War. And those countries remain the House of War until they submit to Islam. And that is why little Safi died in Manchester, England in 2017. And yet other people seem hell-bent on sabotaging our efforts to prevent these terrorist attacks. When I speak out against the killing of little girls like Safi, some people call me a racist. I don't understand that.
No.
When I speak out against terrorists using a truck to run down pedestrians, I'm called a hater. And I don't understand that either. When I speak out against the man who ran up to Israeli citizens at a bus stop and chopped them up with a meat cleaver, I'm called Islamophobic. As if I oppose these things because I have some kind of mental illness. I don't understand that kind of thinking. Barbaric acts like that are supposed to ignite righteous anger in the hearts of decent men and women. They don't have a phobia. They love their children. Now, if anybody has a problem, it is those who try to sabotage legitimate efforts to stop these barbaric acts. Little Safi's blood was not dry on the pavement before some were lamenting that, oh no, somebody might say something bad about Islam. Now that is Islamophobia. Being so afraid of offending Muslims that even when there are dead children laying on the pavement, they are too afraid to speak out. In my humble opinion, real Islamophobia is government officials and others being so afraid of being called Islamophobic that they fail to take common sense precautions to protect their citizens. Islamophobia is endangering the community by sabotaging our efforts to prevent such things. Now, another symptom of Islamophobia is government's refusal to identify the problem. When a terrorist kills in the name of Allah, government leaders have a bad habit of saying it had nothing to do with Islam. Give me another baloney. Baloney. Well, guess what? Every terrorist in the world disagrees with them. Government apologists often like to say that the perpetrator was mentally ill. Baloney. That is also a fabrication. The men who commit these acts have deliberately and consciously chosen to walk the path of violence. That is not mental illness, that is malevolence. And suggesting that terrorists are mentally ill suggests that all they need is a little counseling. Another dead-end street that will hinder the problem to get to the root of the problem. However, I will say that the United States Marine Corps knows how to counsel them.
Amen.
Accusations of racism and Islamophobia are really nothing but dirty tactics intended to silence the open and honest discussions that we must have if we are ever going to get the problem-solving process going. Now, playing the race card is a favorite way of shutting down honest discussions. And another dishonest tactic is playing what I call the all card. This is often done in public when people shout, "Why do you hate all Muslims?" That's just dishonest and another attempt to intimidate people who want to solve the problem. I do not hate all Muslims. In fact, I go out of my way to talk to them. Every Thursday I attend a men's Bible study down in Daytona Beach, and before that I go to Dunkin' Donuts, where I often meet up with Adib, a Muslim from Saudi Arabia, who was quite offended one day when I was sitting in there reading Pamela Geller's book, Stop the Islamization of America. Adib and I had quite a conversation that day, but now we meet to drink coffee. He defends his culture, and I express my concerns about the religion of Islam. And I look forward to more coffee drinking sessions with Adib. Now, another way that the all card is played is by those who claim you can't blame all Muslims for the actions of a few. No, you can't. But in a way, that is also a dishonest accusation. Everybody I know, including the Muslim community, agrees with the 10% number, that approximately 10% of the worldwide Islamic population is radicalized and is looking to kill for Allah. Now, the problem is that those who are radicalized don't wear a uniform. They effectively hide within the Muslim community until they strike. That means we have no choice but to deal with the Muslim community as a whole if we're ever going to get a handle on terrorism. Now, someone recently put forth the M&M illustration. M&Ms are one of my favorite chocolate treats. But what if 10% of the M&Ms were poison? Would you still bring home a bag for your family? No. The answer to that's obvious. Common sense dictates no more M&Ms until that poison problem is solved. And the only way to stop the M&Ms from getting out into the community is to deal with the entire M&M assembly line. And in the same way, until the problem of mass murderers hiding themselves by blending in with the Muslim community, we're going to have to deal with the entire Muslim community. Yes. And for those who feel that that is unfair to the moderate Muslims, then please, if you have a magic wand that you can wave and identify the terrorists, please point them out to us and we will deal with them. But do not tell us that protecting the feelings of the Muslim community is more important than protecting the lives of our children. I worked for 20 years as a law enforcement officer to end things like wife beating and child abuse. And now I see these things coming back, being brought into our society by a religion whose unchangeable holy law literally mandates such things. One of the worst crimes I had to deal with was rape. As the investigating officer, I spent hours with the victims. Young women whose lives would forever be tainted. Decent people should be outraged by rape. And when I studied how rape is handled under Sharia law, I couldn't believe what I found. In order for a man to be prosecuted for the crime of rape in a Sharia court, the woman, the victim, has to provide 4 male witnesses of impeccable character who actually witnessed the physical act. If she doesn't have the witnesses, there is no case. And to make matters worse, the woman who reports that she was raped can be prosecuted because her rape report can be used as her confession that she engaged in sex outside of marriage, which under Sharia law is to be savagely punished. It is estimated that about half of the women in Islamic prisons are there specifically because they reported that they had been raped. Most rapes in Islamic nations go unreported. Gee, I wonder why. Pity the poor girl who is raped, doesn't dare report it, and then finds out she's pregnant from the rape. Sharia law for her crime is generally a public lashing. Her Islamic law, this rape law is a part of the Islamic culture. Muslim men are permitted to rape women whom they possess, according to the Quran. That is, non-Muslim women whom they capture. And in Europe, rape jihad has become a national nightmare. Go ahead. pull out your cell phones and Google Rape Jihad Europe. You will find that tens of thousands of young women in Europe and Scandinavia have been raped by Muslim immigrants. Tens of thousands. That is rape jihad. And as an American man, I am outraged. And we will not tolerate that coming to this country where our daughters and mothers and sisters will be subjected to such barbarity.
Right.
And the media? The media is pretty much silent on that. Yet,
there's also the link with sex trafficking.
Sex trafficking.
With this.
Yes. Capture them, rape them, sell them.
That's right.
Sex slavery.
As I said, I cannot and will not stand by and allow religiously protected rape to sweep across this nation. Our wives and daughters and sisters deserve better. And standing against rape is something that all of us should be able to do regardless of our political or religious or lifestyle affiliations. As a law enforcement officer, I worked to end wife beating. And now I see it coming back into our communities dressed up as a religion. The Quran, chapter 4, verse 34, tells men to beat their wives if they are disobedient. And I have to ask, where are the feminists on these matters?
Amen.
Women's rights advocates should be leading the charge against these abuses of women and girls. Where are all the angry feminists who march for equal pay for equal work? But when it comes to girls and women being savagely abused in the name of Islam, we hear nothing from the feminists. Back in 2014, the National Organization for Women held their strategy summit in New Mexico. And there, a resolution was introduced to educate people about the dangers of Sharia law. That resolution was voted down. They passed resolutions to, quote, dismantle white privilege and to normalize relations with Cuba. But when it came to wife beating, honor killings, and rape in the name of Islam, they didn't want to get involved. Now that is Islamophobia. Well, Act for America is not afraid to get involved, to take a stand, and to do battle for legitimate women's rights. And I'm honored to stand with people like Randy McDaniels and Brigitte Gabriel to fight for the rights of women and children to live in freedom and safety. And I encourage the women of this nation who truly care about women's rights to take their donations to the National Organization for Women and redirect that money to Act for America. It's pretty clear in my book which one cares more about women's rights. And that brings us to slavery. And we hear a lot about slavery in the USA, even though it was eliminated 150 years ago. There are some groups who just will not let it go. They claim to be so offended that people long dead and gone owned slaves that modern descendants of slave owners should be held accountable. Well, if those people are truly concerned about slavery, why do they not speak up about the one religion on earth that still practices old-fashioned slavery?
Amen. Say it again.
Under Sharia law, Muslims have the right to seize non-Muslims from their homes, put them in chains, and sell them on the auction block to the highest bidder. It is estimated that there are over 500,000 slaves in chains in Mauritania and Sudan. I would think that anyone who is concerned about slavery would speak out against the modern-day slave trade. And that they would stand with Act for America to keep Sharia law from coming here. Make no mistake about it. Sharia law is coming to America, and Sharia law always brings the things that we have been discussing. Now, here in our constitutional republic, if we pass a bad law, we can go back and change it. But Sharia law is considered to be holy law that cannot be changed because it came from a God, little g. And this is the crux of the battle. Which system of law will reign supreme in the USA? As of today, the United States Constitution is the law of the land, but all Muslims are required under Islam to do what they can to make Sharia law the supreme law of the land wherever they are living. No matter how long it takes, there will be a steady, serious push to overthrow the Constitution and replace it with Sharia law. Most will work through political means. Some will do it through acts of violence. Either way, I think it's clear that what Sharia law brings is incompatible with Western civilization. As an American, as a Christian, I cannot ignore my duty to stand in the gap for the women and children of America. And that's why we're here today, to call for unity, to call all Americans, regardless of our political or lifestyle differences, to stand against what should be recognized universally as wrong. And the people of the USA need to find their courage to take a stand for what's right, even if it does mean being called a racist and a hater. Winston Churchill once said, "You have enemies? Good. Means you've stood for something in your life." I want my life to count for something.
Amen.
I want to live my life in a way that will make a difference in this world. And this I do for little Safi, a little girl whose blood calls for all of us to do the right thing. I want to thank you for inviting me to be a part of this event today. I pray that our words you will take with you, and when you go out there, you will make a difference. You are the key to making a difference. It's not the federal government. It's not the law enforcement officers. It's not the military. The key to stopping this atrocity from sweeping across the United States of America are men and women just like you. Thank you. And we are now going to open up the floor to questions. Bill, if you'd like to take part as part of our panel, you're certainly welcome.